Welcome back to the Mach 1 method. I'm Coach Jason.
Coach Jaron.
Coach Patrick.
Coach RJ.
Coach Big Bad Bob.
Today we are talking about nutrition. We've alluded to nutrition in a lot of previous episodes. Specifically today, we want to dive into what fad diets are and how they can compete and how they do compete with just doing the fundamentals consistently and how that's going to affect the types of results you get. So I think no better person to start than Coach Shay Ron, the coordinator for our Healthy You nutrition program here.
Yes.
And let's pan to art. No.
So I think the biggest red flag, because social media is very prevalent in all of our lives, and a lot of people post advice unsolicited on social media, for better or for worse sometimes. And if you see anyone on social media saying you can't eat this food, seed oils are bad, you need to eat only meat and fruit, minimize dairy, all that stuff, if they're telling you exactly what you can't eat, red flag number one. I think that's what, a fad is in a sense. I think the important thing for people nutrition wise is understanding the basic principles of nutrition, how they work, and then adapting that to what your body needs, which sounds big and scary, but it's actually very, very simple at the end of the day. I think we've all fallen victim to certain fads at certain points in our lives. It's just inevitable. But when you get back to the basics, how frequently am I training? How much protein does my body need? And maybe what carbs do I need to fuel me, or total calories wise? That's really what it comes down to at the end of the day. And I think it's so much simpler than the internet makes it out to be. So if anyone wants to share maybe their experience with that.
I was just gonna kind of say, but open it up to you guys. Like, big takeaway from that is like red flags are absolute statements. I think probably in any industry, but especially in one as nuanced as nutrition. If someone's saying definitely do this or definitely don't do that, probably proceed with caution. And like the basics that you mentioned, just keep it simple, and you're likely going to either get results or make it easier for yourself to get results.
I feel like we need a morning talk show like button where like they play all the sound effects, but ours just says it depends whenever we're doing these podcasts. So I would say one thing unanimously that we preach here about nutrition is it's not about what you shouldn't do or what you can take away. It's what can you add. And when we look at what we can add to our diet, and that's going to really shape a lot more value to what we're consuming. It puts things in a positive light. So that way now we're thinking of, oh, this is good for me. This will add value. This will add protein. This will add nutrients. It's helping the cause rather than being restrictive. And I think a lot of the fads are very restrictive, the kind of crash course in terms of diet. And it might work because you might take a whole food group out of your consumption. So if you do something like that where you're doing the no carb diet, you're going like carnivore or something like that, then you're just eliminating roughly about a third of your daily intake of calories. Of course, your body's going to start to starve itself and thin out, and you're going to see results. But as soon as that plateaus, you're going to be in such a bad position on that rebound. So it's more important to look at what can we add for the long term of nutrition, and then doing the simple things like figuring out how much protein do I need in a day. Okay, let's base our meals off that. This is my protein of choice for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. These are my vegetables to pair with that. And then the rest of it, we get to have some fun. And that's where like the creativity of like different meals is, the fun part of cooking. You can go in and maybe you're doing a taco bowl or something like that, and you're going to do your meat for your protein, you're going to throw in your veggies, and then from there I have a little extra room for my fats. So I'm going to do some avocado, I'm going to do some pico, I'm going to do some seasonings and some sauces, stuff like that. And then you can also take that same ground meat and then put it into a completely different dish. And that's one trick to make meal prep super easy and efficient. So you're not eating the same thing 12 times a week, you can have one protein source give you 4 different meals if you really would like to.
Have fun with your sauces. That's
fun
my
with the
favorite.
sauces.
Yep. Bulk prep everything else and then keep it fun with that.
Yeah, personally, I don't do too much of the nutrition coaching. Kind of leave that up to you guys. But what I do is I kind of start that conversation, and we start with the big rocks. Like, are you drinking enough water? Are you getting enough sleep? What are your sources of carbs that we
Yep.
alluded to? Like, are we just getting like crap, carbs in terms of like candy and sugary foods, or are we getting like a good whole grain, right? And starting with the simple things, hitting your big rocks, and then maybe referring to a coach to fine tune, these smaller details like calorie intake, how much do we need, how much of like our macros, and I don't know if we're going to dive into our macros, but you know, getting a split between that, would be the next step. But you got to start small, start simple, hit your big rocks, and then reap the benefits of that before we get into the weeds of the nutrition.
I think like even though you're not necessarily doing nutrition coaching, all of us are really educated. We all went to school for this and or have one or multiple certifications on these subject matters, and I'd love to take this opportunity to talk shit about like all the crazy charlatans that there are on the internet that don't have the same level of education. I think that is important when you are seeking out guidance is where's this guidance coming from? And you hit just kind of circle back. You still hit the nail on the head. Like whenever I work with someone with a new nutrition coaching client, we start from the basics, like water and sleep. Like if you're not doing those two, like let's just fix that first before we go into anything else and potentially add fuel to the fire or overcomplicate things. You need to be doing the basics, and you need to make that a part of your daily regimen if you want any chance at seeing results in the long term.
And I think like too with a lot of people, they don't realize like how underfed or how overfed they actually really are. Something for me like through college and like high school and like sort of now. I can kind of eyeball it, but honestly, like a kitchen scale has been like a saving grace for me for years. Like just like I don't always track nowadays as much, just because I can kind of feel out like what's good for me in the moment, or like I'm gonna have more carbs, I'm gonna eat till I'm full, and I can kind of guess where I'm at based off like years of experience doing it. But I definitely think like a kitchen scale was been for me personally an amazing investment. I can actually like track exactly how much I'm eating down to like an actual numerical number. And for some people, they just do better with numbers. And like just tracking all that data and then realizing, oh wow, I still actually have like 1,000 calories left. Like, I think like from what I've seen and experienced, there's always people overeating and undereating, and it's just figuring out like how much you need to get back to baseline and how much you need to retract that you're eating. And I'm not a nutrition guy. I drink a lot of Diet Pepsi. I eat a lot of Shake Shack. So I'm living by the sword. I'll die by it. So it's like, you know what I mean? Like, so I eat till I'm full and I have fun. But yeah, I think it comes down. I think like Coach Jason mentioned,
An athlete, though.
I'm also an athlete. I powerlift. That's my
Performance eating.
sure. Once I'm done powerlifting, though, I'm cooked. But yeah, I think like also like seeing like the fads online, we were just talking about like what you should definitely not do or not eat. Like some people honestly, I feel like, and this is more of an opinionated thing. I think some people online post factual things based off of their experiences, not the data. And
Not factual.
yeah, it's not factual. Like, well, actually, Diet Pepsi made me break out in hives, so it's actually bad for you. And I'm like, well, it doesn't do that for me. It's actually very, very nice at night. over some rocks, like just put on the rocks, like got arc raiders, lined up. Dude, I could not ask for a better night. It is literally my bread and butter for existing nowadays. Like I love it. Like so I think it's just like, realizing what's an opinion versus what's a fact. And I think it's like protein builds muscle. That's a fact. But then you have like user 5372 whatever on TikTok saying, well, actually too much protein, that made me gain weight. It's like, well, all right, well, that kind of sucks. That's not gonna work for me. You know what I mean? Yeah, probably. Yeah, and then it comes down to like, well, what protein though? Yeah, like, well, actually, the Shake Shack has protein in it, so I eat it all the time. Like, yeah, well, probably not the best protein you could be eating, but yeah, I think it all comes down to like realizing where you're getting your sources from. Honestly, some people discredit that they are actually their own source, and I think like you should start trusting like your own body and trusting like how you feel after you have these foods, and not just rely on some random person from like Idaho, who's telling you, yeah, actually don't eat that. It's gonna like make you lose like all the gains you've made. It's like, I don't know. What's your opinion on that?
Yeah, I guess question I have, on top of that too is, Bobby talked about the food scale, but what's like another system that someone could use, if they don't have a food scale? Is there anything else?
So I'm going to answer both of your questions real quick.
2 for 1.
So something that we kind of graduate to with the measurements is, like you said, you get an eye for it once you've been doing it enough. But we use different hand measurements as an on-the-go tool. So doing stuff like your fist, your palm, cupped hand, thumb, like these are quick measurement tools that we can use for like different food groups and to get your macro count. So say you take your palm, you cut all your fingers off, you got a nice almost circle there. A lot of what? A lot of blood, yeah. just the way I like my steaks. But say you temporarily remove your fingers instead of cutting them off. That'll give you roughly 3 to 4 ounces of lean protein, depending on your source and depending in the yeah. So someone like Sharon might be closer to 3. Someone who's got big meaty paws like Coach Bob might be closer to 4. And it's very.
Actually, RJ's
Oh,
got bigger
wow.
palms than me. You got some big paws.
That's how he can lay down the
You got some big
dunks.
paws.
Lays down the dunks with those paws. But overall, it's not an absolute thing, but it's a quick reference guide for when you're on the go. It's a good way just to be mindful. And I think at the end of all this nutrition talk, being mindful and consistent are the 2 takeaways from it. But even preparing a lot of stuff ahead of time so you don't have to measure every meal is a great way to go on about making sure you're in the ballpark of what you need that day. And I'm glad you touched upon it because there's a lot of people, especially on the social medias, that are like, this worked for me. Look at my abs. This works for everybody. And that's something that we've been fighting in this fitness industry for decades about the people that are like, hey, I lost 60 pounds and I got super shredded by only eating bananas and chicken breasts. So everyone should only eat bananas and chicken breasts. And it's like, no, that works for you. It's not going to work for everybody. But congratulations on, seeing those transformations. Now let's figure out how someone else can get that same results with their, maybe it's steak and grapefruits or something, or a well-rounded diet. But there's something for everyone out there, and finding out what that is going to be part of the journey. And that's kind of why we do this whole coaching thing. We want to essentially graduate people, because if you don't know where to start, going down to the basics, weighing your food, figuring out what your macros are. There's some people, I do the macros and I know what they are for my clients, and they don't actually know what it is because the numbers are scary and intimidating and it's hard to manage and it gives them anxiety. So I'll break down the numbers, I'll track their macros for them, and I'll just say, hey, eat 8 ounces of sirloin steak compared to a ribeye steak, because that's going to give them the protein with lower calories. And we can kind of like mix and match some strategies there. But eventually they'll get to the point that they can recognize, hey, this is how much protein I need when I go out to a restaurant. If I order this steak, I'll get this much protein. If I get this as a side, I'll get this much protein. And then their protein numbers unlock, and then we just have to manipulate the carbs and fats. So as they graduate, it becomes more of a quick reference scale, using the hands, using your eyes, and you don't have to track everything down to the T.
Thank you. I think one of the big things, like you said, just getting down to basics, that's so important. And one of those is understanding what is a source of protein, what is a source of carbs and fats, etc. Because I think that can get very lost in the sauce. And I think once you understand what's a source of what, it makes it much more palatable. Like sometimes everyone's like, oh, protein, I have to eat meat. And I've had I've talked to people, they're like, I can't eat 6 ounces of steak each night. That's like too much food. It's like, okay, well, how about you have 4 ounces of steak and then you add a little bit of low fat cheese on top, or like some cottage cheese on the side, even though I hate cottage cheese. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm not on the
Put
cottage.
pineapple in it.
No, texturally it's a nightmare for me, but
Like savory cottage cheese.
if cottage cheese works for you, it's great. But for me, it doesn't. But knowing how to like mix and match things, or maybe you add some beans, like that's part of your carbohydrate source as well as some added protein. So there's plenty of different ways that you can hit those goals. I know.
I'm like starving.
You getting hungry? That goes a really long way. And one of my like biggest pet peeves is people are like, oh, peanut butter is a source of protein. Yes, peanut butter has protein in it. That's not factually incorrect, but that's more of a fat source. So just understanding where your food comes from, that when you have the autonomy to like mix and match your own meals, you're like, oh, I know this has that, and it makes it so much less overwhelming, I think.
I actually have like a story of like to add on what Coach Sharon said. I was like, I had a buddy in high school, and shout out to him. It's not a diss at you, but yeah. So he would only eat. No offense, but he would eat like so we were like in the gym, like obviously just doing bro splits together, and like he was eating pasta like so much. And I'd be like, dude, like, and he would complain about not being able to gain muscle or weight. And all he would eat for lunch is literally pasta and butter. And he's like, well, yeah, pasta has protein in it, so obviously I'm gonna eat the pasta. I'm like, well, why don't you have like chicken and all that? And he's like, why would I do that when I could just eat pasta? And I'm like, well, it's not like, yes, you're correct, like what Coach Sharon said about the peanut butter, but it's like magnified how much protein you could get from chicken versus pasta. You probably want more chicken. And I think, yeah, like Coach Sharon said exactly, like understanding where it comes from and just doing your research and all that. Sorry, I just wanted to add that because, yeah, you're wrong, bro. You're wrong. Ron, you're wrong, bro. I love you, but you were wrong. It was a debate for like a year and a half, dude. I love you, bro.
It's okay, Bobby.
If you want to come settle this, Bobby is at 3435 US 9, Mach 1 Barbell, Freehold, New Jersey.
I'm just kidding, Juan. I love you, bro. But yeah, you're wrong, man. I'm sorry. I do want to kind of circle back, in a sense. RJ, you mentioned like what are like tools in the toolbox, right? If you watched our last episode or one of our last episodes, we talked about like training consistency and the importance of consistency and how your frequency of training might change depending on your goals. And I think there's a lot of parallels with that in the nutrition scope as well. You're not always going to be on the same exact meal prep or dietary regimen because life is going to get in the way, right? But if you're sticking to your basics and you, first of all, understand what those basics are, like what is a source of protein, what's a source of carbs, what's a source of fat, how much of that do I need? I mean, that's really the basics right there. You can pivot and make audibles as you go to fit what your goals are, right? You might not have time to make an extravagant meal. Sometimes you do, and it's great when you do, but sometimes it's just throw some food in the crock pot, throw some rice and veggies in the microwave and put it in the Tupperware and call it a day. Sometimes you got more time and maybe you pull out a recipe from Coach Sharon's meal prep ebook.
Which are all very easy.
Which are all very easy and quick. It's the name of the ebook. And sometimes you might even have time to do something a step above that, right? But you have to make sure that you're hitting your foundations, doing it consistently. You do those two things, you're sure to get results, and then you don't need to rely on what's seed oils you need to avoid or what's the biggest superfood now, because at the end of the day, whoever's claiming that is
They're wrong.
bullshitting.
And they're probably
honestly.
doing, like behind the scenes, they're probably doing. Oh, yeah, I forgot about the mic. Yeah, here we go. We're back. Yeah, give me 2 microphones.
Double mic.
Yeah. No, probably behind scenes. This is probably what they're doing. It's just that they're broadcasting, this extreme notion for the camera.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, we're having a whole podcast debate on what's right and wrong over these conversations. So if you're trying to get traction on social media, It's a good way to put a debating topic out there to start controversy, get engagement, so on and so forth. So don't fall into the traps, folks. But something simple, like you don't have to go on this crazy diet for nutrition. Something like I have to hit my protein, but I keep going over my calories. Let's use ground beef as an example. You're having tacos or something like that. Instead of getting an 80-20 blend, go with like a 93-7. You're going to get your protein, you're going to get lower calories. And at the same token, do the opposite. If, say, you are hitting your protein, but you're not getting enough calories, go from 93-7 to 80-20, get your calories up that way. It's a good way just to keep the same thing that you're already enjoying and doing, but filling it with something that's in line with your goals. So if you had an aha moment like that, the coaches are full of these aha moments. Come talk to us, slide in the DMs, drop a comment. We'll answer those, and then we'll get you aha Sendy.
Sounds good. All right. On that note, don't fall for the bullshit. We're here to help. Come to the trusted sources. All right. Mach 1 out. Boom.
Is that the chair?
Yeah, that was the chair. Squeaky leather, my